Hello, my name is Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator at Kansas City Public Schools. Welcome to Homeroom. What you need today is a pen and paper. Be ready to learn as we talk about the Gilded Age. So when we talk about the Gilded Age, basically we're going to talk about economics and economic opportunities for people. Our objective today, we're going to explain the causes of increased economic opportunity, its effects on society, and we're going to be able to identify members who benefit from the society, basically benefited rather than themselves, right? So, our driving questions today. Has rapid industrial development been a blessing or a curse for Americans? Should business be allowed to combine or reduce the competition? And should business be regulated closely by the government? We're going to be able to answer those questions today as we go through this lesson. It's going to be a two-part lesson when we talk about the Gilded Age. Because America started becoming this economic power in the world, right? You know, during this time frame, this is all about the lead up to American society, right? The Gilded Age basically was a technology revolution. It was basically, you start seeing mass production. You start seeing cheaper ways to do things and basically move America forward. Then you're going to start seeing these wealth inequalities. The rich got richer, the poor really did get poorer. But you start seeing some economic advances for some. America is basically a land of natural resources. We had coal, iron, ore, oil. These all exploded during this time frame. And basically, it made a lot of people rich from that. And again, we had immigrants coming to the United States. They understood that this was a land of opportunity, right? So you started seeing a lot of Irish coming over, some Southern Europeans started to come over. So it was an opportunity for cheap labor, basically for big businesses. So, why do they call it the Gilded Age? Basically, it was a metaphor for the period. Our own Mark Twain, basically from Missouri, he basically cloned his phrase. It was glittering on the surface, but corrupt underneath. The politics of the Gilded Age was characterized as scandal, corruption. But the voter turnout reached at an all-time high. We're talking about something like 80% of people were voting during this time frame. Then you have this basically was represented by laissez-faire ideology. What does laissez-faire mean? You remember, that's no government intervention or no government regulation. We talked about that term early in the year, right? So, to define this period, we're going to talk about robber barons and captains of industry. Alright? So to define robber barons, basically they use questionable tactics, basically to amass their wealth. So, we're going to talk about Rockefeller. What he would do, he would put his friends on these boards of these different companies, right? And basically, he would force them to sell their company to him. We're going to talk about all that stuff. Then we're going to talk about Carnegie, right? He was captain of industry. He was a business leader. Basically, he used his wealth to contribute to society. Some people still debate on Carnegie because the way he treated some of his workers. We're going to talk about some of the Pullman strikes and all these other strikes that happened during this time frame. Alright? So, if I want to build wealth, I need less competition, right? So there's two different ways that you could do this. So we're going to talk about vertical integration. Basically, they control all aspects of basically the production process. I basically take this natural resources and finish it to the end product, right? But what Rockefeller did, he basically take over emerging the competition and put them within his own company. So if you have another oil company, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my friend on the board of the oil company and basically force them to sell me the company. Once I do that, that's less competition. Because guess what? Now I own that company and no competitors really going to go against me now, right? So we're going to talk about monopolies too. So, railroad owners took advantage of this laissez-faire, basically, society. You know, they basically used their power and influence to win these government contracts, to get government lands, and basically they took full advantage of it. They got contracts to secure more land. They kept going through this process. Basically kept opening up the West and basically getting these contracts that benefited them. They started embezzling money. Gompers basically went to jail because he did this stuff, right? Excuse me, I said Gompers. Elliot Gold, excuse me. He basically was embezzling money. Then you had basically overinflated stock. These people basically would say that their company's worth this much when it's really worth this much. So basically they were saying, yeah, we got you taken care of. We got land and all this other stuff. They're just lying about that to get their stocks up, right? So, let's do a knowledge check. We're about five minutes in. We'll explain the causes of increased economic opportunity and its effect on society, right? So, basically, increased economic opportunity, that means building our wealth. We talked about some of those people. Carnegie was basically poor when he came to the United States, but he died a rich man. He ended up selling one of his companies for basically over about $400 million, and that's basically in the 1880s, 1890s. So he was well over basically $1 billion today. The big thing is, I want you guys to take from this, American steel basically helped push this technology age forward. In 1855, Henry Bessemer, basically he invented the Bessemer process. It was a cheaper way basically to make steel. By 1900, U.S. produced more steel than both English and Germany combined. Think about that. We were number 4 in manufacturing by the 1860s. By the 1890s, 1900s, we're number 1 in manufacturing throughout the world. This helped basically Carnegie rise from poverty. This helped him basically become a millionaire during this process. Again, in making of steel, they used basically a cheaper way to make steel and basically send it out to the world. Oil is another way that basically provided economic opportunity. 1859. We were using kerosene oil in the 1850s leading up to basically 1859 and 1860s. Then they invented basically the combustion engine. Once the combustion engine was made, basically we needed oil. So, within this 30 years, you start seeing this oil take off. 1882, Rockefeller controlled 95% of the oil refineries in the United States. Again, he used horizontal integration. If I have a competitor, I'll buy him out, right? So, guess what? All that land, all the competition belongs to me. So now that's called horizontal integration. Remember, vertical integration is when I control the whole process. Horizontal integration, that's basically when I take care of all my competitors. Think of it like a battlefield. So, you have these people basically gaining mass amounts of wealth. You have these people basically trying to take up for them why it was good for American society to gain this mass amounts of wealth. So, then how do we defend wealth? How do we justify those people making money and basically those people not making money? One idea was called the social Darwinism. Remember, Darwin came up with this idea about survival of the fittest. And that's what he was saying in basically social Darwinism when it comes to basically making money. This is going to play a huge aspect during this time frame, especially when we talk about the Gilded Age. We're going to talk about imperialism. This is a huge aspect of it. Survival of the fittest, right? I work hard so I get to survive and make this money, right? I get to basically dictate how I spend my money. I get to basically pick the have and have-nots in this society, right? Because I take all the risk as an entrepreneur. I make it as an entrepreneur. Other people don't make it, so they didn't survive, right? So I'm the survival of the fittest because I've survived this whole industry. I survived making it, right? These other people didn't survive, so they don't deserve what I have because I worked hard for that money, correct? Then you have this aspect of gospel of wealth. And this basically, you still see this in American society today. Basically, the gospel of wealth. Basically, that's using your wealth to benefit society. We talk about this time frame like in the 1880s, 1890s. This is big time. This is big time because after Carnegie sold his business to J.P. Morgan, he realized that he needed to benefit society. Remember, he came over here as an immigrant, dirt poor. So in the Midwest, you're going to see these Carnegie libraries. You see Carnegie Hall. He wanted to benefit society as a total, right? These Carnegie libraries, you see them in small towns all throughout the Midwest. These basically provide opportunities for people to learn, for people to read. These gave opportunities basically for plays and stuff to see throughout the United States. So you see Carnegie, basically his name on a lot of things, especially these dance halls. You see him on the libraries. Even some schools have Carnegie's name on it. Because he basically wanted to invest wealth on the future of society, on future American society. So that's the difference when you talk about captain of industry. You talk about the J.P. Morgans of the world, even though he did donate some money. And you talk about the Carnegies of the world. These people wanted to basically make the world better for themselves. You want to make it better for everybody. All right, so it's time to do some we do. How has rapid industrial development been a blessing or a curse for Americans, right? So how's it been a blessing? It basically created super multimillionaires. People basically started making money. People, you saw social advancement. So that's a blessing, right? But it's also a curse because it also left some people behind, correct? So you start seeing basically the ugliness in Americans. Should business be allowed to combine or reduce competition? Think about that. Should they be able to combine or reduce competition? Is basic competition good for American society or is it bad? You explain that one to me. Should business be regulated closely by the American government? So should government be in the business of telling people what to do with their money? Should they be in the business of basically dictating, is competition good or is competition bad in American society? As we start going through the populist movement, this basically is going to be one of our questions leading to the 19th century, right? To the 20th century, excuse me. That's going to be one of those questions. Should government really regulate what goes on in business? That's going to be one of those ongoing questions that we need to be answering, right? So, we answered some of those questions, and one of those lingering questions is going to keep coming back and forth in American society. So now, we're on the you do. So, we discussed the Gilded Age and how it was formed, and who benefited from those, right? You need to write one paragraph defending an argument against government policy during this time frame. Did it really fit a Gilded Age? Or basically what we set up throughout American histories for a gilded society? Where we basically set up for American basic politics to dictate that we have have versus have-nots. Has it always been that way? What you know from American society that you can bring into that? I want you to contextualize that point. All right? How did it linger over American society? That's one question that you need to answer throughout this whole course. I appreciate you guys spending time with me. I'm Paul Turner, Social Studies Coordinator, Kansas City Public Schools. See you guys next week.